as ECPL. I'm going to let the meeting recording go. Here we go. We're recording the session. We'd like to welcome you today to the fourth Administrator Forum session. Today's session is on the elements of effective family and community engagement. And we have quite a few people participating in this session. We are really looking forward to this session, and we are glad that you joined us today. I would ask that all of you, because there's a large group, you can see there's 130 and we're probably expecting some more participants. I would ask that all of you keep your mics muted during the session. One of the things we also would like you to do is please ensure that your first name and last name is with your profile. So if you do not have your first and last name indicated, please do so. We need that for attendance. And also, if you happen to be watching with another person, please indicate who that person's first and last name as well for our attendance records. We will be asking you to put your questions, ideas, thoughts in the chat. With a group this large, we are going to try to monitor it as best as we can. We will also look to see that if there are questions after the session that weren't answered, those questions can be addressed and will be addressed in a follow-up email to you. So just keep your ideas and thoughts coming. We're going to try and monitor as best as we can. And if we see the need for that, we will follow up with answers to those questions later. And now it's my pleasure to turn it over to Jenny Metcalf, who is the Illinois State Board of Education Principal Consultant in the Early Childhood Department.
Hi, everybody. Good afternoon. On behalf of ISBE, we thank you for being with us today for our fourth virtual session of the Administrators Forum. We're excited about today's topic for several reasons about family engagement, but Sergio Hernandez from the Illinois State Board of Education is with us today, and he's actually a former early childhood principal consultant as well. So we're excited for him to share his wisdom on family engagement. And we also have several staff members from a variety of our PFA and PFA expansion programs with us today to share their experiences. We have Melissa Christos, the Parent and Community Outreach Coordinator from Valley View District 365, Dr. James Mitchum Early Childhood Center, Emily Henry, the Assistant Director of Early Childhood from the Regional Office of Education 33, Kevin Hopkins, the Parent Engagement Specialist from East St. Louis School District, Vivian Adams Early Childhood Center, Carol Ramondi, the Lead Instructional Leader from the Early Childhood Development Enrichment Center, or ECDEC, and Ruby Rodriguez, the Family Engagement Supervisor for Educare West DuPage. So this should be an exciting session, and now I will turn it over to Sergio.
Thank you so much, Jenny and Cindy and the team over at the Early Child Professional Learning Center. My name is Sergio Hernandez Jr. I am the Director of Family and Community Engagement at the Illinois State Board of Education. Again, I've been at the State Board of Education, I believe, for almost 6 years. I spent a good amount of my time in the Early Child Department of my colleague, Jenny. And what I was doing is I was working as a principal consultant doing work, providing trainings around engaging our best practices for English learners in early childhood programs, and as well as engaging families. So this work for me is a natural progression. I'm now a director of a department of one, but again, rely on a lot of folks and stakeholders and advocates and your colleagues here within the agency who I rely on and interact with and collaborate with to really try to collect best practices around family and community engagement and really ensure that we are collaborating and ensuring that best practices and capacity building is built for early childhood programs and starting from there and all the way across the educational continuum. So super excited today to present to you regarding our elements of effective family engagement in early childhood programs. Some of the materials and resources I'll share, you probably saw, if you've seen my presentations when I was doing presentations for the Department of Early Childhood, you'll see some of the same resources. They're so effective. But again, at the end of the day, I think, you know, one of the things that is just critical is that, and what's beautiful about the early childhood field is that we really take a holistic approach to human development. So that means that we, again, not only look at the child and how they're developing holistically, but we also look at their family and try to, it is a natural fit, right, in regards to making sure that family engagement is something that we start off with, and it has to be high quality, effective, and engaging and equitable family engagement, ensuring that our families' needs and the children's needs are being met at the same time. So again, just happy to be here to present to you. So I'm going to go ahead and launch into my presentation here. So give me just a sec. So we're going to talk today just a couple of things. I'm going to go over some of the elements of effective family and community engagement. I'm going to talk a bit about our ISBE family and community engagement framework, which is we're in the process of updating. We also really want to center the experiences and work that your colleagues from across the state are doing. So again, we're going to spend a good amount of time having them share some of the strategies, some of the challenges, and triumphs, that they've had doing their work around engaging families in our early childhood system. And these are colleagues from across the state, so excited to hear from folks doing the work and what that means within their context. I'm also going to provide just a quick ISBE perspective on how we're going to approach the family community engagement work through this department. Talk a little about next steps and resources. And I also have a section for you, again, because in building resources for the field, I think it's super important, super critical to have the voice of practitioners inform the resources that we're creating. So I will be sharing a document that I'll need feedback from you from in your early childhood lens and perspective to see how useful it is. I want to share our ISBE equity statement. This is a statement that we've adopted here at the Illinois State Board of Education to ensure that we're centering equity and equitable access to high quality educational resources, experiences, and outcomes. And I'll read it off. Illinois has an urgent and collective responsibility to achieve educational equity by ensuring that all policies, programs, and practices are from the strengths that each and every child brings within their diverse backgrounds and life experiences, and by delivering the comprehensive supports, programs, and educational opportunities they need to succeed. So I want to go into a bit about the legal requirements. So I know many of you are part of Preschool for All and Preschool for All expansion programs, and we know that this is part of the, family engagement is part of our compliance checklist, right? And making sure that, again, that decisions are being made alongside families and that you're meeting families' needs through your programs. And I also want to welcome folks who may not be in PFA and PFAE programs. But because again, I think that that there's if you're in a child care program, if you are in a district that has all of different programs, you'll have child care, you have PFA, PFAE, and all that good stuff, and Head Start. I want to welcome all of you folks as well. And I also want to be very mindful too about the difference between again school-based programs as well as community-based programs, right? And how there's a distinct approach in each setting. So want to be mindful of that. But again, for our purposes, I know many of you, most of you are with our Preschool for All and Preschool for All expansion program. But again, even within Head Start, there's these family engagement requirements that are really, really detailed. A lot of our, the rest of the legal requirements, fall in our Title I and Title III and Title IX programs and law and federal laws. So again, these are all very distinct and again legal language around making sure that we are make sure that families are being engaged across the educational continuum. So at the core, all of these principles, we have 4 principles of family and community engagement that are research-based, right? And they all are part of creating a family engagement system in our programs. So really, I've changed the principles a little bit. I know we started off with creating or developing a family engagement system, but I shifted it a bit because I think all of these principles here and how we reshape these really speak to creating a family engagement system. We know that substantial research findings reinforce the need for education systems and programs to encourage and support parental involvement. So, we know that research has repeatedly demonstrated the positive impact parent involvement, whether in school or at home, has on academic outcomes. So regardless of socioeconomic backgrounds, students with involved parents are more likely to earn high grades and test scores, enroll in higher level programs, attend school regularly, show improved behavior, and develop better social skills. And in addition, when people across multiple contexts foster the cognitive, social, emotional, and behavioral competencies of children and adolescents, youth development and outcomes improve. So again, we've shifted. So that's kind of the definition and some of the supporting research around creating a family and community engagement system in your program, right? Part of creating that program is also, make a system is making sure that there's a commitment to family engagement, that there's leadership, and many of you are leaders, are leading programs, and again, you need to make that commitment to really engage families to ensure that their needs are being met as well as their children's who are in your programs. There also needs to be a commitment around capacity building, right, and making sure that your staff have the resources and and that you're properly staffed to engage families. So I'm going to start off with principle one to think a little bit about how we create that system, right, and really thinking about I want talk about building a welcoming environment. So so making sure that that we really do work with families to ensure that a welcoming environment is created and that they feel welcome in our programs. Also making sure that we enhance communication, ensuring that there's clarity in how we communicate with families. Principle three is including families in decision making. Again, making sure that they have buy-in, and as well, and finally, principle four is leveraging community partnerships. Just making sure that again we don't do our work in isolation. So again, I dug in a little bit more around each principle, and then what does that look like in preschool for all expansion programs? So to build a welcoming environment is reflected in our accelerate standards, as well as our PFA compliance checklist items. Enhancing communication, you can see in Accelerate 2A, as well as our compliance checklist items 13, 14, and 16. In principle three, right, including families in decision making, that's a compliance checklist item in regards to creating a collaborative mission statement for your preschool for all and preschool for all expansion programs. And also, for principle four, leveraging community partnerships, that's also a collaborative piece, and also, having that written community collaboration plan that's required. So how can we create a welcoming environment, right? It's really thinking about families as partners in creating a welcoming environment, right? And although many school districts and schools recognize the importance of family engagement in supporting the learning and healthy development of students, many struggle with how to engage family, right? So I think why do families engage, right? And what the research is telling us is it's a welcoming and supporting environment. According to research by Hoover and Dempsey, a welcoming environment is one of the most influential indicators of family engagement. Schools that cultivate relational trust actively reach out to families, respond to family and student needs, and give attention to cultural sensitivity, have higher levels of family engagement. So it's really being very super mindful of how how we're engaging families, how we approach families, learning about their culture, learning about their languages, learning about the communities and neighborhoods that we work in. I can tell you as an educator, and again, I come from the K-8 world, but I taught mainly in early childhood, in kindergarten through third grade, and I can tell you I've taught in every grade. As an educator, when I was in the classroom, one of the first things that I would do with my students and their families, right, is ask them, what is it that you like? What makes you happy? What toys do you play with? What holidays do you celebrate with your families, right? And they would ask me, well, why are you asking us that? I want to know, all the things that you care about, because that's going to help me get you to where you need to be when I teach you about how to read, about math, about social studies, history, whatever I was teaching. So really, in learning and creating a welcoming environment by, being intentional about learning about children's and their families' lived experiences, and learning about the communities that we live in that context, and the types of resources that are out there are really critical, right, in order to help build that type of, to build relational trust, right? You know, there's some research that talks about some of the following behaviors that were present in schools and programs with high levels of relational trust, right? It's genuine listening to what each person has to say, and taking other people's views into account in subsequent actions. When disagreements occur, opinions were respected. People extending themselves beyond the formal requirements of a job definition or union contract. Transparency, reaching out to others, competency and core responsibilities, and follow through on commitments, right? So really, you know, again, not just developing trust with families, but even within, you know, your programs, making sure that there's this genuine connection and climate in your programs that fosters a welcoming environment for everybody involved, for all stakeholders within your programs. So then, you know, the next piece here is really, you know, how can we enhance communication, right? And it's key. You know, many of you know as a parent, I know as a parent, I'm a parent of 3 boys, and all throughout their, you know, at their educational career, right? It's just been critical for us to really find out, to have clear communication from the early childhood programs. Now they're in high school, but again, making sure that we set this bar in regards to how clearly we communicate, and that we exhaust all types of communication mediums to communicate information that our families need to know, right? And again, all of it depends on some of the pieces around how we build trusting relationships with them, right? Starting there, right? Because if families don't trust you, they're not going to trust the information that you're trying to share. Making sure that, again, stakeholders all stakeholders are involved in making sure that they're if you know stakeholders from the community who can provide resources for the family, you know, having them share out those resources and making sure that they're communicated to families. You know, talking to families about how to navigate the educational system, right? As you know, the doorway into the educational system is our early childhood programs, and I'll particularly say this for our families who are, you know, immigrant, migrant, but in reality, all families, you know, entering the educational system happens for many of us through our early childhood programs. Making sure, again, that we're fostering ongoing communication, right? And again, for me, as I said earlier, making sure that we use whatever preferred type of communication a parent would like, right? Sometimes as a parent, you can get inundated with tons of information. You'll get an email, you'll get a text, you get a phone call, a mailer. You know, I always think about, you know, I always say, try to utilize all the different types of communication mediums that you can, but preferably find out what is it that your families prefer to be communicated in, what medium they prefer, right? Do they prefer text? Do they prefer, so that way you personalize it for them and making sure that they receive the information and actually respond to it if they need to, right? And of course, building parents' leadership and advocacy skills. Again, in doing that, you can have that parents be the messengers, right? And help carry the message and information that you want them to share and communicate out to the rest of the families in your program. Again, as I said, technology, using all types of mediums to engage with families. And of course, thinking about a collective impact approach and working with, again, stakeholders from across the community to communicate resources that are available for families. Oh, how can we include families in decision making? So, you know, one of the things I like to talk about is making sure that families are part of our school and program improvement processes, right? So I know one of the great models that I think about in early childhood is the early childhood parent policy committees, right? This is where families are invited to create, you know, help create policy for specific programs that, again, is local and made in context. So then you get this family buy-in, this direct family input. To me, that's a model, right? And I think, you know, that can be applied in our preschool for all expansion programs, as well as other, you know, early childhood programs. I know if you're part of a school district-based program, you know, there's opportunities for parents to engage in parent advisory committees right? So making sure that if you have a bilingual parent advisory committee, for instance, telling parents there's an opportunity here to learn how to navigate the system through our bilingual parent advisory committee. And as you know from our compliance checklist, the creation of the mission statement, right, alongside parents and caretakers. And how can we leverage community, partnerships, right? Really just making sure that, we have, in our compliance checklist, we do require that there's MOUs, right? At least with their Head Start programs, but also, in collaboration with perhaps, local libraries or hospitals who might offer special services for families that they may need, or city government or parks district that can provide different types of engagement opportunities for families after school, right? And then making sure that the resources meet the basic human needs and allow families a path to empowerment. So what I mean by that is, again, that we, not only do we want to just provide these basic human services, like perhaps maybe it may be mental health services, it may be access to summer camps or after school care. What I want our field to move towards is really thinking about human empowerment, and what I mean by that is, I'll give you an example, is that there's this great program called Parent Mentor Program that again is funded through ISBE, and they train parents to be these mentors in the early grades in schools across Illinois. So, the program works with the parents in order to help them think about personal goals they might want to accomplish. That may be wanting to finish GED. That may be learning English as a second language. But again, working with those parents, figuring out what they need and what they would like to accomplish, what goals they have in order to achieve those goals, and also model achievement for their children. So the beauty of the program is that, again, it allows the parent to almost model this approach to empowerment, which again models it for the child as well. And then what happens is those families end up usually getting those parent mentors who are trained end up getting hired in the schools and programs that they work in. So again, not only just giving families like these basic human resources, but also maybe opportunities and connections with for instance, a community or chamber of commerce, right? And working with them as a partner to maybe give parents, give them employment opportunities in the local community, right? To economically empower them so then they can have the money, to have the time and the place to live in order to be able to create the most valuable piece that we want for families, is time with one another, time to enjoy life and to enjoy one another. So really just being very mindful of creating these intentional community partnerships that not only serve the family's needs, but also empower them economically, social, emotionally, what have you. And I got to tell you, this is again our newest addition to the principles. I really did want to be explicit about community partnerships, because I think they are critical. And again, we can't operate our programs in our schools in isolation. We need to be collaborating with one another. Systems need to be talking to one another. And I know there's some great examples in our field in early childhood with our collective impact work with early childhood community collaborations that are going on out there. I know there's some work right now around from INCRA created the Birth to Five Illinois group that is going to be creating these local advisory committees that'll be stationed out of our 39 ISBE regions. And they'll be engaging families across, within those specific regions, as well as other stakeholders, to ensure that families and communities have access to high quality early childhood options, right? So again, that's something that you, as leaders, you can connect to when those are set up. I know there were a couple of introductory meetings that happened last week, which I think they'll be recording and happy to share out after this webinar. But again, there's opportunities to again create these partnerships. We also have at the Early Learning Council level a family advisory committee, right, which is supposed to advise the larger council and review any policies that recommendations that come out, will go to the Family Advisory Committee to be looked at and to ensure that there's a family lens on that decision making, right? Ensuring that we're centering the needs of families before we move forward with the policy. So it's some exciting work around at the local level that you can do, but also at the state level that's happening around, leveraging community partnerships to create incredible programs and outcomes for our children and families. This is going to be my favorite part here of the presentation, and this is a feature across the board that I'll do across all the presentations around family engagement across the educational continuum. But wanted to really feature some of the work that's going on at the local level, right? And I think it's really important, and it's my mission to really elevate some of the incredible work that some of your programs, many of your programs, are actually doing in regards to engaging families, right? Not just being at compliance, right? I think compliance is the floor, is what people say. We really want you to move beyond compliance and just having checklists or agendas and sign-in sheets. We really want to make sure that you're living the 4 principles and that you're showing that you're operating on all 4 cylinders of this family and community engagement engine, right? That you're having a welcoming environment, that you're enhancing communication, that you're including caretakers and families in decision making, and leveraging community partnerships. So I'm going to first invite Kevin Hopkins to talk a little bit about his program and share out just a bit about some of the work that you're doing. So Kevin, I'll ask you, again, just if you can share, what program that you're working in, how long you've been doing, and my question to you is going to be, what inspired you, or what inspires you about family and community engagement work? What got you into this work?
Okay, well, again, thank you for inviting me to be a part of this learning opportunity. And my name is Kevin Hopkins, and I'm a parent engagement specialist with School District 189 in East St. Louis. And this program has been fully functioning for about 3 years under the operations of the school district. Prior to that, it was contracted out through SIU Edwardsville, and the district took it over about 3 years ago. Prior to this, I worked in the advertising and marketing field for about 25 years. And after leaving that, I went into juvenile justice. I was a case manager for adult and juvenile parole. And in working that position, a lot of the young people on my caseload referenced their early childhood experiences as being less than ideal. And so when the opportunity presented itself to work for the school district, the same school district that I was a part of growing up, I jumped at it because the impressions that was left upon me by those young people was that if someone had stepped in to make a difference in their lives earlier, or their parents' lives earlier, they might not be in the situations they were in. And so coming out of that situation, growing up poor, growing up in the projects, and being able to leave East St. Louis, go to college, and have a successful career, this was my way of giving back. Now, the way we do community engagement here, really starts, with the enrollment process. We developed a parent survey, a questionnaire, to figure out what their interests were. And we began developing collaborations based on what the family's interests actually were. Now, when we came in, there were already some established partnerships. The Greater East St. Louis Early Learning Partnership is a collaboration of early learning organizations here, including SIU, Head Start, Leslie Bates, Parenting for Success, Kofi, Children's Home and Aid, the Southern Illinois Healthcare Foundation, and of course, our program, which is an expansion program for Vivian Adams and Katie Wright. We were also members of the PFA and the PFAE Metro East collaboration, which still includes Leslie Bates, Cahokia School District, the Harmony MG School District, Madison School District, and Freeburg. And adding to that, we joined the Juvenile Justice Council, Connections to Success, which provides professional development training for families. There are several different home and healthcare facilities that we've brought in to present workshops and do professional development training for our families. Just recently, the Gateway GIS, which is an organization tied to the National Geospatial Institute that's building a center here, has offered to provide training for the parents and for the children in terms of workshops and employment opportunities. So that has been something that we're really excited about. In addition, the Fathers and Family Support Center provides training classes for men, and recently they added on classes for women. And so they provide a lot of different types of training, which is, very important for our family members. We've got some banks that provide some financial training, and fraternities and sororities. There are many in our area that are filled with professionals that willingly volunteer their time to provide some of the services that are needed for our parents and within the school. So our network continues to grow because a lot of the opportunities come to the school. And when our staff members hear about different opportunities that are evolving in the community, they let our parent and family engagement team know, and we can pursue those collaborations.
That is pretty incredible. You have quite a bit of a community connection. So what I hear a lot, what you started off with is one, with the welcoming environment piece, where you you figured out what it is that families need, and then you were able to connect them to this vast network that you've created with of community organizations and institutions. So can I, one thing I'd like to ask is how are families receiving it? Do you ever see any challenges in regards to, or any reluctance from families in accepting it? Have you developed that relational trust in a way that they're able to take advantage of all these great resources?
Well, it was definitely tough at the beginning. When we first started, I was the guy at the front of the school passing out the flyers. Now we're talking pre-pandemic. And so whenever a parent would come in, family would come in, they'd get a flyer about one of our programs. And so they got kind of sick of seeing us doing that. But after a while, they got used to it because, again, that was something that was really not in place before. The parent engagement team, as operated by the school, is something that's new. And so once they got used to that, they became much more receptive to the programming that we were providing. We include fun things. It's not always work. We have parent field trips. We have hands-on workshops. We have guest speakers that come in. We have read-alongs with community members. And so those things kind of break down the resistance. Now, it's never going to be perfect because as a parent engagement person, you have to realize that a lot of the resistance that you'll get is going to be based on that adult's relationship with the school system from when they were children and from when they were growing up. So their participation is going to be based on how you can connect to them in a new way as an adult.
That makes total sense. Again, they're right. There's been, so when we think about, and you just brought up an equity issue, right? Is that, there are many families who've been marginalized and have a distrust for all institutions because they've been, there's been barriers to many families in accessing the resources they have needed. And when communities have asked for those resources, it's been really, we've been blocked from getting those resources that we need. So, one of the, this is a good question that popped up, but, we're of course in the middle of a pandemic,
Right.
hopefully on the off ramp for this. But how were you able to connect with families during the pandemic?
It took a lot, but once we sat down and figured it out, it's really working well. We have begun a series of drive-through events, right? So the things that were once held inside the school that we can no longer do, we promote as drive-through events. So we're coming up on Valentine's Day. Our budget has allowed us to, purchase Valentine's Day gifts for the parents. And so we're going to create a flyer. We're going to send it out through an email blast, and we'll have the parents come through and pick up that gift, as a show of appreciation for their willingness to stick in with everything that's happening in the school. this has been very successful for many of the programs that we've had to keep in place even during the pandemic, particularly with our PBIS programs. Now, you know, we want to still recognize the students that participate in the remote learning that are now coming for in-person learning. And we know the children don't get here on their own. So we want to reward the children and the families for doing their best to make it through these tough circumstances. So when we have those events, they are very well attended through the drive-throughs.
That
We
sounds
also have
incredible.
virtual meetings. So yeah.
Yeah, that sounds incredible. And I gotta say, some of the best research on there on family engagement is, again, a lot of times, we in family engagement, we create events and we expect families to come in, but again, bringing and going to families
Right.
is extra powerful, and actually is a better on ramp to that relational trust that we seek in order for them to continue being engaged in the work. So that's pretty incredible.
Mhm. And one other thing that I like to mention, you know, I know there are a lot of programs that are still in person, you know, as we are now. When the programs really first ramped up, when we got our team together, you know, attendance had historically been, poor, let's say. And so we turned, you know, things like parent teacher conferences into events. So we provided food, we provided music, we provided entertainment, we brought in community partners for tabling, we held raffles, and the jump in attendance has been phenomenal. We went from, you know, reportedly maybe fewer than 10 families to 60 to 80 families showing pre-pandemic. And when we have some of these virtual events now that include a raffle, we're looking at numbers close to 200 that just tune in for a bit, even just to participate. So we're still seeing some growth, and we still see some opportunities to expand what we do, but we're always sitting down trying to think of ways to re-engage the parents.
That's pretty incredible, the numbers that you engage pre-pandemic, and even with the Zoom calls. I know that's been the challenge, right, in regards to getting families to get involved in activities, and the incentives and incentivizing it. It's something that works in this case. Any other specific strategies you want to share that with your colleagues here that really call out to you, or in regards to making sure that families are engaged?
Well, take advantage of technology. You know, social media is great. You know, when the pandemic at its height, we had a network of pages on Facebook for our parent engagement team, for each village of our school, for our social workers, for our teachers that specialize in movement and music. So we had those networks. We also use MailChimp. We have an email blast that goes out weekly to provide information from the school, and that's given to us from our community partners. So that has been very critical in helping us stay engaged with our families. And we have, you know, there are 5 parent engagement specialists that work from this school and another from Katie Wright. So we have each got a personalized list of emails for the classrooms. So when there's something that's specific to a classroom, we'll send out an email blast to that classroom to let them know. And that's in addition to the blast that goes out school-wide.
That's great. I like that personalized list. Again, giving a personal touch to communications is, again, one of those strategies I keep hearing from other family-facing staff, which again does wonders in regards to parents feeling valued, right, and engaged.
It really does.
Really does make a difference. Well, thank you so much, Kevin, for sharing.
You're welcome.
And I appreciate all the incredible work that you're doing in the St. Louis area. And again, so glad that you're here with us to share with your colleagues some of the work that you're doing. I'm going to turn it over now to
Sergio. There was a question for there's a few questions that were in the chat that I think Kevin did answer. We'll look at those again at the end to make sure that we answered them. But one of the things was, Kevin, are you able to share the survey? The survey that you mentioned that you give to families, are you able to share that with this group?
I will. Yes.
Okay. So if you
Should
get
I
that,
send it to you?
Yes.
Absolutely.
To Susie, and we'll share it with the group as a follow-up. Thank you.
Great. Thanks so much, Kevin. We're going to turn it over to Melissa Christos. And again, Melissa, if you can introduce yourself, tell us about how you got into this family engagement work and some of the and just some of the work that's going on and how the four principles kind of live in the work that you're doing.
Absolutely. My name is Melissa Christos, and I have been at it's the Valley View School District. We just went through a name change, so we're now the Dr. James Mitchum Early Childhood Center. I've been here for 16 years. I started off in the classroom, but prior to my classroom experience, my undergrad's in social work, so I worked for the Department of Children and Family Services. And I knew when I left there, I knew I wanted to go into working with children. And so I got my degree then in early childhood special ed. And so then I was a teacher at this building for 10 years. And then we were one of the first districts in Illinois to get the Preschool for All expansion grant when it was a federal grant. So I had the opportunity to come into the parent at community outreach coordinator position. So we kind of navigated the grant from Illinois first. So it was kind of fun to do. And since then we have evolved into having 160 students in our Preschool for All expansion and 300 in our Preschool for All grant. So we are just here. We have the district has supported us. And I think that's where I want to start is when you have a district that is behind early childhood, it makes our jobs a lot easier. And I'm very fortunate to have that. And to help with that is that we also have a huge team. And I think that's where you can't do this job alone. You have to utilize your people in your building. Your teachers are your number one advocate, and they're going to help with that relationship building with our families, as well as working really hand in hand with those social workers. So I always have wanted to work with families since, when I started in social work with DCFS. And so I've just continued my work here at the Dr. James Mitchum Early Childhood Center. And so, some of the things I know it's challenging. We're all in this together with the pandemic, but is to not think about it as a pandemic, is think about it as our families still need us and how are we going to support them. And so we've kind of just continued doing everything we've done. And just we always start off with a commitment form to our families, like what we're going to give them and what in turn they can give us. And I think that helps right away at the beginning is building that relationship, and that happens always in our intake process when these families are coming into our program. And then so they know up front that our program strives on parent involvement and how we want them to be part of those classrooms and part of our community. And we also start off with home visits. Pre-pandemic, we were in the homes, giving them home visit bags, welcoming to those classrooms before they stepped foot in our school. And then we switched them over to Zoom, and they actually went really well for the last 2 years is doing Zoom home visits. And so just building the relationship from day one. And so when new students come, that's the first thing we do is that virtual home visit now. And then, like I had said, our district has a lot of community partners, and we kind of just partner off of them, but we also have our own that are kind of like our early childhood partners. And so this year, we're able to get a partner for giving us all pajama partners, it's called, and they're across the country, and they donated books and pajamas to our whole school. And so it's just really utilizing those people that want to give. And we also utilize Project Linus this year, which is a organization that does blankets for families. They a lot of times were giving to the hospitals, but then the hospitals couldn't take donations. So they gave blankets and to all of our families. So we kind of utilize that as like our winter drive-through event. And like Kevin said, we utilized all of our events to that drive-through piece. And we had over 400 families come to all of our drive-through events. And prior to that, I mean, I would say we probably increased maybe by 40% by going drive-through, but in the past, our families really enjoyed the events. We use a survey that we ask them what they want the events to be around, and then so they're kind of owning those events. And so we plan it around their interest. Another thing we utilize our families for is for our pyramid model. We have a parent on that committee who's helping us plan our that. And we also have a parent on our building leadership team. And so they are part of our leadership team, and they give ideas, and they're involved. And then they talk in the community, so they're encouraging other families to be part of that. And then our advisory board, we hold them very highly in doing projects. So every year they come up with a free and reduced activities in our community. It could just be a list of parks. It could be a list of places that are doing free movie nights, but they publish that and hand it out to the families. So that's usually their big job for the year, is getting those things in place for our community. And then one last thing that we've done that I think is building that community partner piece, is really partnering with our apartments in our community, and we provide books that either the library donates, our teachers donate, and we put them in the apartments, in the laundry rooms downstairs, in the lobby, so then our families have resources for books. And then we know when there's a new family in the laundry room, then we can give them information about the school and how to start schooling.
That's some incredible work, and again, I see all the connections. I see you're hitting all of the four principles in what you've described. I mean, I really, again, you start with the commitment form, right, and saying that, look, we as a program are obligating ourselves to do these things for you and provide you this access to what you need. But again, also, it's a two-way, and what that sounds like to me is that again, you're also expecting a commitment from them. So, again, opening up, with that is really kind of creating this welcoming environment, or setting the tone for that. Of course, the home visits and the Zoom home visits, right? So you're showing innovation in regards to how you are engaging families, prior and before the pandemic. The Pajama Partners is an incredible, again, you're not only doing local connections and leveraging community partnerships, but national. So that is really, really incredible. I know that somebody had asked a little bit of, or was excited about that particular piece, and then having parents as part in creating or making decisions, right? You have them as part of that pyramid model of committee, as well as the building leadership meeting. So again, all of these pieces again really kind of hit all four points. Well, I'll ask you the challenge question. Any challenges that you've had that you've overcome, or things that you're hearing from families in regards to the work that you're doing?
I mean, always getting families involved is, a challenge, but I think once you build the relationship and they see the teachers in action, and they see that it's a caring environment, they're more willing to give them your time. And those ones that are super hard to reach are usually the ones that I work hand in hand with, and I'm usually just going out into the community to build that relationship and give them that empowerment that we're here to help them, and not get them in trouble in any way.
Yeah, I just saw a question here around how you engage community partners, right? So the question was, do you engage them, or do they come to you?
For all of those, we used to have a wonderful organization that came to us, and unfortunately with the pandemic, they lost funding, but they came to us and they used to donate. They used to give us food so we could have our own food pantry right here. And so that was a community partner that came to us, but unfortunately I have since lost that one due to the pandemic. But the other ones I have found, and we've just reached out, and every year we just ask for more. And they're willing to do that, as as our program grows, they'll also are willing to give us more.
That's great. Yeah. So again, and one of the things I want to go back to that you said is that again, you have leadership, right? That believes in the program. So that's key, right? And going back to creating the family engagement system, creating an effective early childhood program, it really goes back to having folks who believe in the work that we do, and then helping us build that leadership, helping us build capacity to do this work. So just wanted to point that out as well in regards to how we think about when we create family engagement. Make sure that your leadership is buying. Many of you are leaders of programs. Again, if you want effective family engagement, be willing to invest in the capacity of your program, right? To if that means financially, if that means through developing community partnerships like Melissa has and Kevin has, tapping into those pieces that are out there already to expose families to the resources they need. That is again showing your leadership as leaders in our preschool for all programs and expansion programs and whatever program in early childhood that you lead. Let's see. Any other thoughts or any strategies that are your favorites in engaging families for your colleagues here?
No, I mean, I always love the in-person events and I do miss those. But the drive-through events have truly been really fun. And it's just a different feel. And the stuff that I know someone had asked, everything that we've given out as a school to the families are usually some sort of supply that the teacher is going to be using on seesaw events or activities that we know that then they have in their hands. But for like the winter events with the pajamas and the books, then the teachers just know all those families have that resource. So then they can plan stuff around those supplies that they have been given.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Melissa, for sharing your experience and the work that you're doing. And again, just I want to thank you for again just being kind of breaking it all down. Again, you're hitting all cylinders in regards to the 4 principles. So I really appreciate the work that you're doing on behalf of families and children in the area that you're in. And for sharing with your colleagues some of these great strategies and activities that you're doing to ensure that you're meeting up with the 4 principles of family community engagement. So now
Thank you for letting us share.
Of course, happy to.
May I have a question, please? Sorry.
We're going to give it over now to Emily Henry. And Emily, if you can again introduce yourself, talk about introduce your program, and talk to us about some of the activities and how your programs are again hitting those 4 principles.
Can I cut in real quick? I'm sorry. This is Ms. Washington, Chicago Public Schools. Real quickly, what type of themes, and I think I saw it in the chat too, were used for the drive-through? What type of themes?
Themes.
Were used for themes
okay.
For the drive-through?
Yeah. I don't know if anybody wants to hop in regards to that.
We did a literacy. We've done literacy and we've done math. And then we did an end of the year celebration. And then the winter celebration for when we gave out the pajamas and the books.
And this is Kevin. And for ours, we've typically done, recognized holidays like Thanksgiving, Christmas. We've got one coming up for Valentine's Day. And usually our librarian is out with us giving books out to the families as they come through the lines. So that adds a literacy component to it.
Thank you for sharing that strategy
I
and those
have
themes.
one question, please.
Sure. Quick one.
The question for Ms. Melissa. She said something about the first home visit for the children. Is that students for the early childhood? Is that something that you guys did, right? And
yes.
What does it look like? What does that look?
We do. We have just a form of just how to get to know the families. So like we will ask the children, what do they like to play with? What's their favorite color? We'll ask the families, is there, just different things that what's going on at home, who lives in your home, just to get to know the family on a personal level. And then when we went to the home, we would bring a bag with us, and one year it was all around social, emotional, and emotions. So we gave them Play-Doh with a Play-Doh mat to how you could do your feelings. We just utilized all of the pyramid, like a lot of the pyramid model stuff for them with resources on social emotional development. And then we gave them a Mr. Potato Head that year so they could work on emotions. And then the teachers are just asking just questions on, just getting to know them, like basic questions on getting to know the family.
That's before entering the school, right?
We do it at the beginning, and then anytime there's a new student that comes into the classroom, they do it. So it's always at first enrollment.
Great idea. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you for the questions. I'm going to go ahead and have Emily talk a bit about her program.
All right, hello. So I'm Emily Henry, and I am the Assistant Director of Early Childhood with the Regional Office of Education 33. So we cover 9 different school districts and 1 center with 32 classrooms, and those classrooms are varying preschool for all and preschool for all expansion, and some of those classrooms are blended, meaning they have preschool for all and expansion together. I have 6 family educators, and we typically would have 7, but we currently have a position open, so there would be 7. We're funded to serve 542 preschool for all students and 246 expansions. So we're covering a lot. We have 4 different counties, and it's a pretty rural area. So sometimes the resources that we have available from county to county and district to district varies. I got into this work because when I was a child, I had kind of like Kevin was talking, he wanted to be in the corner of those people. Kind of had similar situation when I was a child. I didn't have the best life, but I always had those people that were in my corner that could back me up. And I wanted to be in someone's corner to help them and have people to support and do the work that I love doing that I wish I had when I was younger. So something that I really wanted to touch on today, we did a lot of the similar things that Kevin and Melissa talked about with like drive-throughs and things like that. But another thing that we really utilized is in our preschool advisory councils, we empower those families to fill out surveys. And when those surveys are completed, that kind of guides us in what we're going to provide. And then we like to empower those families to help us plan those events. So if wellness was a highly selected thing, we empower those families sitting on that committee to kind of guide that decision-making and what that event is going to look like for them and help us host that event and giving their input on what that looks like. So it's a little hard sometimes to get them involved in wanting to do that, but those relationships that you build and directly asking them, kind of playing on those parents' strengths that are sitting on that council with you. Once you get to know the families and you know that this one particular mom is really good at planning the hands-on experiences, or this mom really loves reading stories, or this grandma is great at sewing, and kind of playing on all those different strengths and tying those into those events and volunteering in the classroom has been a huge help for us.
That's really great. And then again, I really appreciate you talking about how, you first, again, and all of you have talked about how first you figure out what is it that parents' needs are, what the family's needs are, what their context is, and what their strengths are, right? And then really playing up on those strengths. So that is really, I think, again, a consistent theme that I'm seeing here. And then the piece around, again, making sure that they're part of the decision making, and again, having them become part of the event committees, and having them actually conducting them at some point, right? And leading those events is pretty powerful. Any events that you want to share that were really fun that the parents really loved?
Yeah, so I actually have 2 different things I can share. One of the things I wanted to share was we hosted a nutrition event, and it was highly attended. We utilized a local grocery store to partner with, and they provided meals for all the families, the ingredients to cook a meal, and talked about kind of like the nutrition value and how to get those children involved in the kitchen. So it was definitely our highest attended event that we've done, and we've done it for the past 2 years because everyone really enjoys it. And now we're kind of refocusing that event and working with the Illinois Extension Office and a local hospital to kind of do the similar event, but gear it a little differently for lower income families. So our plan with these events moving forward is kind of showing those families how to make this meal, but more budget friendly and still keeping those nutrition meals on the table for their children. Another thing that was huge for us was Edpuzzle. I don't know if you guys have heard of that resource, but during COVID, we struggled with meeting families. Everyone was tired of being on Zoom. The time was hard for people to set aside to get on Zoom when they're trying to take care of their children. So we utilized Edpuzzle to kind of get those family education pieces out there. We have to educate these families by grant compliance for all of these different things. And sometimes that was hard. So we utilized Edpuzzle, and Edpuzzle is great because they can watch it at their free time, but there's also an accountability piece to that. So parents have to answer questions. And I mean, you pick the questions, so they can be super simple, but there's an accountability that they have to answer those questions and they have to follow through with watching the whole video. And we used ours, we did our Edpuzzle over our conscious discipline strategies in the classroom, and it was huge for families. So, and then we were able to give them supporting materials at home to have a safe space in their homes like they do in the classrooms.
Those are some incredible strategies. Again, I really appreciate that partnership, right? So then you leverage a community partnership with the local grocery, and now you're moving towards, and again, being very thoughtful of your whole population that you're serving. Now working with the hospitals to again make sure that again we are meeting families where they're at, right? And I think that's critical. Is that again we have to know our families, know what their needs are, and then meet them where they're at. Alongside making sure that we also recognize their strengths and their resilience, right? And building it right through the conscious classroom work that you're doing through Edpuzzle in a pandemic, right? So that is really very innovative. So thank you for that. I really love that. I'm a city guy, and I want to learn more about how to do what strategies you utilize pre-pandemic and post-pandemic, right? So these are some of the strategies shared, but in rural settings, rural areas, and I know, like you mentioned earlier, you shared that you are your ROE sits in a rural area. What specific challenges do families have in rural areas that you're hearing?
So I think our hugest challenge is there's all of these resources available, but they might not be directly where those families live. So we struggle with connecting our families to transportation to get them to those resources. So we really had to try to work hard to contact those agencies and see if we can bring the resources to the families. Some of the drive for our families, the closest resource might be an hour away, and that's just not feasible for them. So we've really had to try to build those partnerships to bring resources to them instead of expecting them to go to resources that they don't have available.
Gotcha. Yeah. So that's what I've heard, right? So again, and I want to always, be very mindful again that there is different settings in our state. So for many of us who have grown up in cities, right? Well, we take for granted the ability to be able to, walk over to the local community clinic or the grocery store, right? Cities are made to be walkable, but in our rural areas, it's a lot tougher to get to things, get around and get around. There is community though, and there's resilience. There is, again, folks find a way to do it, and that's pretty powerful, right? And so I do want to elevate that and say that as a city guy, again, I'm committed to learning about, again, the resilience that folks in our rural areas have, and how they again collectively work together to, make it through and get things done. So some of the pieces that you shared here again, really in regards to the strategies, really speak to that. So then you created the Edpuzzle again. So if I think about how the pandemic has separated many of us in the cities, I just got to say that in rural areas, right, just getting folks, because there's in wide expanses, there's already been kind of the social separation, so you all are a little bit more used to that. But in any event, you're still able to get the resources that you need to make things happen for folks. So that is, so I just want to make sure that I'm very intentional about saying that. Any other things that you want to share in regards to strategies or challenges with your colleagues here, that something that really makes you happy about the work that you do?
I think that for us, I know some people were saying that their virtual events were highly attended, and ours were as well. But I think this year we've had districts able to have those in-person events. And I think just seeing the families in person and they get to make connections with one another has been huge. And they feel more welcomed in that district because they have another family to connect with. So I've loved being able to see us get back to those in-person events and see those connections made.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you so much, Emily, for sharing the incredible work that you're doing through the ROE and supporting school districts in your area. And again, just thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you for having me.
So now we're going to give it over to Ruby Rodriguez. So Ruby, can you talk a little bit about yourself, the program that you're in, and some of the incredible work that you're doing in your program?
So I am currently a family engagement supervisor. When I first started, I was a family engagement specialist, and it's been about 6.5 years. And this year we are actually celebrating our 10-year anniversary at Educare. Starting with Educare, I was invited to work here. And when I found out what they're doing, we are a dual language program. I found myself in a lot of pieces of those stories of families and children here. Something that we are a blended program, so we are PFA, PFAE, and Head Start. Something that we do, since we are a dual language program, we want to make sure that when families come here, you know, I just think of the word of like knowing the population you serve. Like, what does it look like for them? What does it feel like? And I think of it like from a child's perspective as well. Like, are there people that look like me? Are there people that can communicate with my mom, my grandma, my grandpa? So in a creative way, we've been able, with the shutdown, coworker was able to translate every single document since we went all like online, doing things virtually, the intakes. Of course, we had a little bit of challenges. We're trying to figure how to increase our parent engagement. At the events, we've been strategizing and changing things that this year we decided the entire school year we're going to do once a month parent events. They're all on Wednesday. So today we're actually going to have Colgate with us to present since it's the month of the Children's National Dental Month. And a piece to strategizing is really having all of our teams and staff members in the most cohesive way that they can take part of it. We do use like text. We do have our family engagement specialists. They actually do have a work cell phone. We also use Seesaw. We've had Remind app before. And we've had the verbal way of inviting parents as well when we do, at pickup or drop off. We also have the teachers strategize with us, like, can you invite so-and-so, or tell you know what, I will be there. And we actually have our staff, our master teachers, our teachers, our family engagement be a part of the parent event. You know, you don't want to extend the invitation and not be there. So we've also had a raffle where if a parent attended, we will raffle a gift. But that was last year. So this year, we've actually have more parents attending and asking us like, hey, I was not able to attend. Can you send me a recording of it? We strive to give things out if we do have them. We do have a partnership with Joanne's Fabric that donates quite a lot of miscellaneous things that we repurpose it and find ways to give them away. We also have with family decision making at the very beginning of the intake enrollment, when our family engagement specialists go through the paperwork, they do highlight the parent engagement activities that we have. And we have them ask and write down, like, what hours are you available? Are you able to come in, attend the Zoom in the morning, in the evening, and then what kind of are the hours that work for you? So aside from our Wednesday events, we do have activities like Abriendo Puertas, and we do have a parent cafe. So the driving force for us actually choosing the time will be the parents. I kind of think of the Family Feud when parents kind of give us the most average answers, and that's how we go about. Something that I did want to highlight with what this school looks like for families and what does it feel like. A lot of our hallways, we do still find a way to give a tour to our families. And a lot of our pictures, we display pictures, not just artwork, but pictures of families, of children, what they're doing inside the classroom, what's happening outside of the classroom, and highlight even abriendo puertas to graduation, the parents' curriculum that parents attended. Parents have a busy life and they still somehow made a way possible to come in and be a part of it. We highlight our, which is very important to us, our male figures. Who are these important male figures in our children? I want to highlight and put that on our hallways, so when a child comes in, they do see that, there's their cousin with their uncle or someone who is very important. We're a small community and how everybody knows each other. We do highlight our families who are reaching their goals. No goal is very small. We've had parents being highlighted on our halls and pictures for being the first time renters. And, for parents to share something so intimate, yet to be happy to be a part of it, to put it on the wall, that's just a lot for us. We just find ways to be really immersed with our families. And I think one of the greatest ways we do that is a lot of our families are all Latinos, majority of them. They all speak Spanish or English or both, or maybe only Spanish. We do have a majority of our staff here who speak Spanish. Everything that is in our hallways will be in both languages. If it's in blue font, everybody knows that's in Spanish. Black ink, that's in English. We do strive to make sure everybody takes the opportunity to be a part of the professional development. Every person walking into the building, we all know we're going to make an impact one way or another if we are working directly or indirectly with children. So with that in mind, I think it's so important to highlight and support and engage our front desk. We had two wonderful women up in the front desk because they're the first ones who are going to see the struggles of a parent trying to bring in their 2-year-old. They're going to see the struggles of a mom, maybe not sure enough she'll have enough gas to make it back home or to work. We want those two front desks to also be a part of family engagement, because family engagement is everyone's role.
That is some pretty powerful examples that you shared, and I totally agree. If we're lucky to have the front desk staff, or again, if you're in a school, you have the school secretary. There are these really or our teaching assistants. Those folks, it just really are part of, again, like you said, Ruby, everybody has a part to play. And you're talking about that what you pointed out there is a systems piece, right? And that is a family engagement system. When you've got everybody from the janitor to the director, and everybody in between has a role to play. Again, for our folks here who are administrators and leaders in your programs, again, you set the policy, you set the tone, you help set the culture and climate on how things how family engagement unrolls in your programs, right? And then how you support staff. And you talked about how everybody, is involved in the PDs, and ensuring that folks really are learning how to engage with families and children. I also, the welcoming environment piece, you talk about how, again, you're in a bilingual program and both languages are represented. You have multilingual staff. Again, you're hitting all the cylinders in regards to the 4 principles. And then again, the decision making, right? You talk about how, again, you utilize surveys, you gamify it, right? To kind of figure out and make it interesting to let families know what is it that they need, how they can get involved, and also incentivizing involvement in the events that you create. Any specific challenges that you want in regards to you want to share and how you've overcome them?
We have seen challenges in different ways we haven't been totally prepared for it. We do have a lot of our families struggling with transportation. Last year, when the whole COVID shutdown happened and we had to start the new school year in 2020, we had to change the ways we do the drop off and pick up. And just by being in the forefront of our school and having parents drop off, we actually could see grandfathers coming in taxis or Uber, a teenage girl needing to drop off her child if we're heading back to school. And that really brings a lot of challenges financially. Like, do you drop off your child to, to child center, or do you make it to school, but you don't have enough funds for that? And somehow we've really had a way to provide these gift cards for Uber or for taxis to provide support our families with transportation issues. With a part of the parent communication part, I think has been going so well. We've had teachers who do not speak the language Spanish somehow use an app, send their message in English, it translated in the language of the family, and then vice versa. For me, is really teachers being innovative and using what they have.
Thank you for sharing those examples of challenges that our families have had, and again, but also, right, strategies that you use at least to communicate with them. But and again, hopefully we're on the off ramp of this pandemic. I know, but it's impacted us all, and it's just really been a tough piece. But it's the work that you all are doing, Ruby, and your other colleagues here around engaging families that is really making an impact and making sure that families are getting the the services they need and the resources they deserve. So thank you for that. I know we had we actually had one more person who's going to present with us, and her name's Carol. I don't know if Carol's on. Just wanted to see if she
is. She's on.
Hey, Carol, welcome. So Carol,
I'm still here.
all right.
How are you doing today?
Good. Can you talk? Just wanted to again talk to you again. All your colleagues here have shared how their programs they are reflecting the 4 principles of creating a welcoming environment, enhancing communication, ensuring parents are part of decision making, and leveraging community partnerships. Again, wanted to make sure that you definitely had a chance to talk about again your program and how you're hitting all those 4 cylinders and those 4 principles. So take it away.
A lot of what has been said has already been. It can also be related back to our program. So my name is Carol Ramondi. I'm a lead instructional leader for the ECDEC program, which is the Early Childhood Development Enrichment Center. We are a community-based program that works out of the northwest suburbs, so District 15, and then 23, 26, 25, and District 57. And what's unique about ECDEC is ECDEC has always been very involved within the community. Of course, we've got our collaborations with our district partners, and they're a very important component of what we do, but we've made it our goal to make sure that we were in very down in the community where that we're most needed. So we've had classrooms in community sites such as the Palatine Opportunity Center, or the Community Resource Center as it's also known. We've had classrooms in apartment buildings. We've done them in strip malls, churches, wherever we could find a place that would allow us to help the families that needed us the most. We have basically birth through 5. So we have PI, PFA, and PFAE, and we're servicing just under 1,000 families within our community. And a lot of what has been said today is exactly what we're doing within our program as well. One unique thing that has been going on is in the Palatine area, we've started something called the UP Coalition, which is a group of 30 community agencies, and we're hoping to grow that work together as a team to meet the needs of the families in the community and streamline services through something called the Hub, which is, we use the software Charity Tracker. And what that does is it allows us to work and collaborate together and collect our data and find out where the needs in the community are most needed, what families need the most, and not duplicate our services so that we can service more families. And it really flips the script where we're asking families to meet what we need in order to give them the services. This is actually saying to families, we want to service you in the easiest way possible. So instead of having to fill out forms for 5 different agencies that might best serve you, we will put all that together in a system, and then we will come to you and say, hey, you said you needed X, Y, and Z, and we want to help with that. And that has been a game changer for a lot of our families, because a lot of duplication of paperwork and service providing means that you're not servicing as many families as you possibly could within the community. And we're really excited to see how that grows and flourishes, especially since we're starting that up full tilt right around the start of COVID. So we know once COVID is in our back window, we're going to be doing a lot more with that. I think one of the main things we all need to remember to summarize what we've been talking about is that, and it was said from the very beginning, families don't have the same school experiences as we do. And it is so important that we look at what our families need and help them understand that this isn't just about educational service. This is about a service for their entire family, and that we want their voice and we want them to be part of what we're doing.
Thank you so much, Carol. That was, again, I really love the piece around the, again, you've taken your history in the program has taken the program to settings, right? You weren't waiting for families to come to you. You took it to them, and you continue to, right? I know, again, in the olden days, you know, we could have programs in you know, apartment buildings and in different areas, and how innovative, right? Because that, again, it is really making sure that we are not waiting for families to come to us. True family engagement meets families where they're at. So thank you for that. And your work continues with the Up Coalition, right? And that's that community, that's leveraging all these community partnerships and making it easier to integrate and align the resources in the community to, again, taking it down to one form. That's a beautiful thing. And say, look, you know, here, you know, we figured out the needs for this community. You're telling us what your needs are, and all you need to do is just, it is one step, and here are all the different arrays of pieces that are customized to your specific needs as a family. So that is powerful and incredible.
And it gives them control. It allows them to say yes or no. I want this or I don't want this. And sometimes families don't necessarily tell you what they need when you first meet them. They have to develop that relationship with you. They have to feel comfortable with you. They have to know that you are there for them. And that can evolve over time. And that's why I think the hub is really powerful, because it allows us to say to families, this is what we can offer. You let us know what you want. And it takes away the barriers that they normally would have. And if anything, what we've learned from the COVID situation is that having those boots on the ground and knowing what your families have, it made our job so much easier. When they said, okay, you know, pivot, it was like, it wasn't, you know, we're not going to do this. It was, how are we going to do this? And being able to have that foothold within the community and knowing what the community looked like and what it needed and what they were already telling us allowed us to get us up and rolling in a way that I think benefited them even more, because we knew they needed resources in their homes, and we knew they needed internet, and we knew they needed, you know, the ability to access technology. It was just a matter of, okay, how do we do this for them?
Right. And then again, efforts like the Up Coalition, you know, again, remind me of, again, a lot of the mutual aid work that happened during the pandemic, right? So really, again, people figured out a way to one, make sure that families, that folks collaborated in order to get the needs of our most marginalized families, our most needy families met. So again, it's just powerful. So thank you for that, Carol. Really appreciate your contribution to this and the work that you're doing on behalf of families in your community. So again, you see this theme, right, in regards to all of these 4 principles, right? All of our colleagues here have created a welcoming environment, right? They figure out what families' needs are. They build these relational trust through enhanced communication. They ensure that you know, that families are part of decision-making processes by adding them to event committees, through you know, again, you know, just you know, helping them lead events at some point, empower them to lead events, you know, and then again, you know, leveraging community partnerships. You know, you have examples here that start at the local level and then go on to the national level to bring resources to families and connect them to the things that they need in order for their children to succeed. So again, thank you again to all of you for doing this incredible work, and for sharing your experiences and your lived experiences as family engagement staff in your program. So I'm going to go ahead and move us back to our presentation here. So I'm going to share some quick resources really quick, and I know we got a few minutes, but I did want to go ahead and just give you ISBE's perspective, again, I want to thank our colleagues here, the Early Childhood Professional Learning Center, for helping me with my perspective. Part of what I want to do is build capacity across the state, and this is how we do it. What we do is we really try to provide resources to school districts and programs by elevating best practices as we did today. And of course, building and leveraging relationships with families and communities and staff from across the state, school staff from across the state, from pre-K to 12. And then creating spaces for peer community dialogues and embedding equity through policies, programs, and practices. At the end of the day, what I'm hearing too is equity issues being addressed, right? We know many communities within their context do not have access to some of the resources that many of us may take for granted, right? So the work that you do around family engagement is so critical and is a key piece of equity efforts, right? And ensuring that there's access to resources to ensure better outcomes for all students, all youth, all families across the state. I did want to share some, and again, you will all get it. If you haven't received this slide or these slides, you will get the slide deck. But again, there's some really great resources here. I know my colleagues over in early childhood worked with an organization to create the kids parent video series, which is really great. Some really great videos to send out to parents to share out around best practices around developmental practices. One of my favorites is Teaching at the Beginning video series. Again, that's specific to multilingual students, but again, the strategies that work for our most marginalized students work for all our students and families. Of course, we have our large ISBE family engagement framework, which is part of our, again, which we focused on in this presentation. There's a larger document which we're updating. I also have a ISBE Face website where, again, I continue to put in resources that span the whole educational continuum. So I welcome you all to visit. And again, I want to invite you all, if you're family engagement, family-facing staff, twice a month we have a Face Empowerment Statewide Parent Liaison Network meeting. That's a mouthful. But what we do there is we actually, again, we're creating these spaces where peers can talk and talk shop around family engagement and allow us at the state agency, at ISBE, at other sister agencies and advocacy organizations to share out the resources that again were specifically built for families. I know this week we have one coming in Spanish. I did one yesterday in English. But we're featuring our parent training information centers, which again are federally funded to engage families and help them navigate the special education world. So it's just some really good presentations, and I invite all of you to come out to these meetings. So we'll send a link after our call. Also, I invite folks to make sure that you're letting families know to fill out the 5 essential survey. Again, getting data from families and learning from how we can create a better environment in our programs is critical. If you're part of a school district program, again, this mainly pertains to you, but again, 5 essential survey windows now open until March 11th. Again, just a critical piece for data for decision makers in school-based programs. Again, I did want to, I know many of you might have received a copy of the ISBE Principles in Practice. I did want to get your feedback on it. If you could put on the chat, if it's accessible. I'm going to see if I can pop it up real quick. We have 1 minute, but if you can give me some quick comments on whether you think the tool is useful. And again, so we have a 34-page face document, but I wanted to make something that, again, really cuts to the chase in regards to what these principles mean, what some of the standards that we can focus on, and then critical questions for each of the stakeholders in a family engagement system, in a program or educational setting. It's meant to educate for educational leaders, staff, and family community members. There's a resource that's hyperlinked that illustrates each of these, how we answer those questions. And then a case study, what we're going to call these spotlights, that are going to spotlight programs, what early childhood programs the school districts are doing to really illustrate family and community engagement. So again, let me know in the comments. I know we're at 2:30. I'm gonna, and if you can't let me know now, you can send me an email. But again, happy to again modify this in a way where you have a say and how we develop some of these tools to help you do the work that you do. So again, without further ado, again, I want to thank all of you for attending our event today. I don't know if there's any announcements from our colleagues at the ECPL, but again, thank you to all my colleagues here who shared their work experiences around family engagement, and I'll give it back to our colleagues at ECPL.
Thank you so much, Sergio, and thank you again to everybody for your participation today. And many thanks to our FE partners who were able to share all the valuable information with each of us today. Just wanted to remind you that we will be sending a follow-up email within the next 24 to 48 hours. It will provide a link to an evaluation that we would ask for you to please complete. Even if you are not looking for the evidence of completion, it is very valuable to us to get your feedback on what was shared today. This session was also recorded. It will be available on the ECPL YouTube channel in a couple of days. If you haven't yet subscribed to that, you can go to the ECPL website at eclearningil.org, and you can subscribe to the YouTube channel through that. It also has all our prior administrator forum sessions from this fiscal year, and along with some additional webinars that we have also recorded. So we definitely would encourage you to go look at that and look at our website as well. Again, remember, you can save the chat. We will work with Kevin and Emily and a couple of our other presenters today to get the information that some of you had requested. That would be like the surveys that Kevin was referencing, as well as information on Ed puzzles. So we will try to gather that information and include it in the email. So if you don't see the email right away from us, it's because we just want to get the right information for all of you, so you have that. So other than that, we again would encourage you to join us for our next administrator forum session scheduled on March 9th. And that is going to be focused on inclusion. And our presenters will be Ann Kramer and Pam Rising-Reckner. So if you are able to join us, that's on March 9th, and that will be from 1 to 2:30. So thank you again, everybody. Thank you again, Sergio. We can't thank all of you enough. That's a very important topic, and we were grateful that all of you could join us today.
Thanks, everybody.